Good morning. Good morning. How is everyone? Good. Yes. Thank you for coming back for day 2 of our Smithsonian National Education Summit. I am Monique Chisholm, the Undersecretary for Education here at the Smithsonian. And for those who may need a visual description, today we are coming to you from the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden Auditorium. I am an African American woman. I have curly hair. I'm wearing a blue t-shirt today with blue jeans, and I'm excited to be here. So to start us off, I'd like to if you were with us last night, I have a couple of things that I'd like to review before we jump into our keynote today. But first, I'd like to offer a land acknowledgement to say that we gratefully acknowledge the Native peoples on whose ancestral homelands we are able to gather and hold this event. And we want to say that we honor the vibrant Native communities across the nation that make their home in various places today. So really starting off first with that land acknowledgement. I also want to make sure that everyone can fully participate in the way that is most conducive for their needs. And so if you need any extra assistance or an accommodation, please let somebody who's wearing a blue shirt know, and we'll make sure that we can take care of making sure you have what you need. We also have ASL interpreters joining us today, and thank you for their service and their assistance, and also closed captioning for those who may need it. I want to thank our team lead, Ashley Naranjo, who has been instrumental in helping to plan the summit and bring all of the pieces together. And there's a huge team that has been working with our office and with Ashley to help with all of these preparations. And so very, very special thank you to all of the hard work that has gone into the planning for the summit and all of the individuals who have been contributing. We also have been working with some great assistance with our production company and our communications team, and so thank you to everyone who has joined in. This is our 3rd year for our National Education Summit, and each year it continues to grow and get a little different. We started off with 1 virtual day 3 years ago. Last year we had 2 days in person, and this year we have a 3-day summit, which started with our reception last night. We're only able to continue to grow in this way because of the collaborations and the partnerships that we have with so many different organizations that contribute to the summit. So we just want to say thank you to those organizations for participating and joining in with us to make this event extremely special. So thank you to all of our collaborating partners and organizations. And again, we really could not do this work without the support of our sponsors. We have many sponsors who have given in-kind donations. You'll find some of those things in the lounge at the Arts and Industry building, so make sure you take part in all of those things. And then also the direct support from key sponsors. So thank you very much to all of our summit sponsors. So just a little bit about the Smithsonian. I feel like I have hit the jackpot of all jackpots, being able to be the Undersecretary for Education here at the Smithsonian. I have been in education my entire professional career, but being here at the Smithsonian has reinvigorated my passion and love for learning in ways that I didn't really even understand or know that could exist. The Smithsonian is a very unique place in that we have over 21 museums, we have 21 libraries, we have research centers, science centers, education centers, and literally everything at the intersection of science, culture, history, and art you will find here at the Smithsonian. And this is just a small representation of our portfolio of museums that are here in DC on the National Mall, but also in Boston and Florida, and also in Panama, where we have our Smithsonian Tropical Research Center. So I really do feel like our education resources here at the Smithsonian are sometimes the best kept secret. And so this summit is our way to showcase all of the miraculous work that our educators across the institution are doing each and every day to support students, families, and teachers and educators across the nation. So a very special thank you to our over 300 educators here at the Smithsonian. Very special thanks to the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden for hosting us here. If you had a chance last night to join us and go through some of the exhibits, you'll see why it's so special. And the team here has been amazing to work with, so thank you. I also want to say that it's a very special event because the Arts and Industry building, which is where most of our breakout sessions will happen for in-person teams, has been closed to the public, and we get to reopen it to all of our educators and fill it with teachers and fill it with, invigorating thought and discussion at a very special time in history. The Arts and Industry Building was one of the first Smithsonian buildings, and so it's been with us for the entire 176-year existence. So it's very special to be able to utilize that building. And also thank you to our partner organization, our partner units who hosted the behind-the-scenes experiences for on-site participants, the National History Museum and also our zoo, and really want to say thank you for those opportunities here at the Hirshhorn too. I would be remiss if I did not mention that we have 2 new museums joining our collection, the Smithsonian American Women's History Museum and also the Smithsonian Museum of the American Latino. And we are very excited that both of those museums have already started programming. And if you have time, please take a look at what they're offering either online or join us here at the gallery at the American History Museum for the gallery that has opened for the National Museum of the American Latino. I'm excited to share for the first time nationally our new Smithsonian mission, vision, and values. We've had a team of educators working on this for about a year to really help us think through what do we here at the Smithsonian want to communicate about what we value and what we're trying to do. And at the end of the day, I'm going to just sum this up by saying that our mission is to inspire curiosity and connections in a changing world. We really do see it as our responsibility to use our collections, our research, our objects, our unique ability to tell stories in a way that really nobody else can, to really inspire curiosity and a love for lifelong learning in a way that not only helps us kind of think about things in a new way, but take action towards changing the world. We're here to work with you, we're here to encourage you, we're here to improve our nation, and that's what we are committed to as a group of Smithsonian educators. We also thought very carefully about the summit objectives. And one of the things that is paramount is that we are here to celebrate and honor educators and to promote teacher voice. And you will see that throughout the summit. We're also very excited that for the first time this year, we are including student voice. And so you'll also hear from students throughout our sessions over the next 2 days. We want to highlight and discuss critical issues that are facing the education community. So in addition to the behind the scenes, the breakout sessions, our keynotes, we've built in opportunities for key provocative conversations about key issues that are happening in the education space today, built around 4 themes: life on a sustainable planet, reckoning with our racial past, STEAM education, and arts integration. And so those themes will carry us through the next 2 days. I'm really excited that we have the opportunity to talk about the research base around the science of learning and development. And that's where the summit theme comes from: Together We Thrive, fostering a sense of development, fostering a sense of belonging. Now, I'll bore you just briefly, stay with me, with some research on the science of learning and development, because I think it is phenomenal. What this research has done is brought together a number of different disciplines to ask the key question: do all students have the potential to thrive? And there were 6 things that they found in the research, which I want to go through just very quickly. The 6 things are that first, there is individual variability for students, that learning is developmental in nature, that there is a social aspect to learning, that there is neuroplasticity that occurs in the brain, that mindset and motivation are key for learning outcomes, and that the transfer and application of knowledge are also essential for students. So first and foremost, individual variability. It means that each student does not learn in the same way, that we have to think about how to customize and personalize learning for students to meet them where they are, and so that individual variability. That it's developmental in nature, it's a progress, it's progression, it's steps, it's growth, and we all don't develop in the same space speed, or time. And so there are stages in that development. That it's social in nature. Relationships are paramount. Relationships are key. And that the social aspect of learning also has to focus on the social emotional well-being of students. The fact that the science found that our brains experience neuroplasticity means that the brain can change. So if you experience joy and happiness, it maps your brain in a certain way. If you experience trauma, it maps your brain in a certain way. But the brain can change. There's neuroplasticity in the brain that allows us to change. And that effective teaching, it was found that effective teaching and effective teaching practices can promote a neural transition for students. And then mindset and motivation are key and paramount, and that transfer of information. So not just learning something, but being able to take that knowledge and transfer it into everyday understanding is key for helping students thrive. So I'm really excited that we have an opportunity over the next 2 days to hear from national experts, to also hear from our Smithsonian educators, and to think about how our instructional resources can really occupy a space that helps to promote all of these things that we're learning from research on the science of learning and development. It's going to be an exciting 2 days, for sure. We're going to start off with a very exciting keynote from our National Teacher of the Year, Rebecca Peterson. And I just want to tell you a little bit about this phenomenal person. Rebecca is a high school teacher in Tulsa, Oklahoma at Union High School. She does an amazing job with her students. She's been teaching for more than a decade, and she also has a blog that she is an administrator for and a contributor for entitled One Good Thing. And she'll talk about this, and she'll talk about how she looks for a positive thing that happens every day to share about what's going on in the classroom. She is an immigrant, a proud immigrant, and she shares her experiences in her presentations and her lectures about being from Swedish and Iranian descent and what it meant to travel the world and go to so many different countries and have that opportunity, but also what it meant to have that experience here in America and how she uses that recognition in her own teaching strategies today. She also values listening to her students in a way that I think is so profound that I really want to try to model and match in my own work that I do. She is a remarkable person. You're in for a treat. And so without further ado, please help me welcome to the stage Rebecca Peterson, National Teacher of the Year.
Hello. How are we doing? Good. I'm wondering if maybe we can start with a little bit of a mindful moment. Would that be all right? So something I do with my students, particularly post-pandemic, is teach them some different breathing techniques. So really this is more for me than you to ground me in the morning. I was thinking maybe we could just do some simple box breathing. So we're going to breathe in for 4 counts through our nose, hold, and then breathe out through our nose for 4 counts and hold for 4 counts. And we'll do that 2 times. If you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. Otherwise, feel free to keep them open. So let's start with a big breath in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. In. Hold, out, hold. Thank you. Welcome. Well, I would like to start by taking a little memory journey if we can. And what I'd like for you to do is think about an educator that held significant impact in your life. And would you do me a favor and just kind of hold them in your heart for a little bit? Maybe think about how they made you feel, how they brought out the best in you, how maybe they made a seat at the table for you when you struggled to find your place. Do you have that person? Yeah. Now let this settle in. If you're an educator, at some point, someone will be asked that same question, but your image will appear in their minds. How you made them feel. How you brought out the best in them. How you made a seat at the table for them. And quite frankly, I can't think of any other profession quite like this one, right? Where people, they don't just think about us, they like hold us in their hearts, years, even decades down the road. We all know the power that one teacher can have, right? And we each strive to be that one teacher. We didn't become teachers to save the world. We became teachers because the world deserves people who will take care of each other. As Dr. Chisholm mentioned, as a bicultural, bilingual immigrant to this country and the daughter of medical missionaries, I lived in 4 different countries by the time I was 16. And moving from continent to continent, it sometimes I feel a little bit untethered, right? People would ask me, like, where are you from, Rebecca? And I didn't know how to answer that very seemingly simple question. And so I always sort of felt like I had one foot on the inside and one on the out, right? And it's like every time we moved, I would like search and search for my seat at the table. But it often felt so elusive. Thankfully, there were teachers that worked fiercely on my behalf. When I came to America knowing only the words thank you, Mrs. Horde scooped me in her arms and whispered, Rebecca, your differences make you beautiful. Her words both empowered and protected me, affirmed me. When others made fun of my last name or laughed at my mispronounced syllables, I remembered Mrs. Horde's words. Because one teacher made a seat at the table for me, I grew to become proud of my heritage. And then in middle school, during a time when people told us girls' brains aren't quite wired right for math. Do you remember this narrative? Yeah. Mrs. West looked me square in the eyes and she said, Rebecca, math is your superpower. Her words empowered me as well, and so I pursued not 1, but 2 degrees in pure mathematics. History told us girls don't have a place in STEM. Because one teacher made a seat for me, I get to be part of the narrative that said history was wrong. And then came Dr. Turner, who pushed his students to lean into their talents, but also to look for spaces where those talents could help other people. All he asked was, Rebecca, where is your heart leading you? His words challenged me. And I thought about it and I decided that I would go ahead and pursue becoming a high school math teacher. And so because one teacher made a seat for me, I found my passion. And after 3 years of teaching at the college level, I decided to listen to Dr. Turner and start teaching at the high school level. But I didn't pick just any high school. I picked Union High School, a school of 3,100 students in a district where 72% of our students are socioeconomically challenged and where 62 languages are represented. How hard can it be? I thought. The college kids love me. Well, turns out it was hard. I looked up the word difficult in the thesaurus, and none of the 119 synonyms yield an adjective that accurately summarizes the shock of that first year of teaching high school math, but some do get close. I went from this classroom where students were paying to hear what I had to say, right? And would prefer not to pay to hear me say the same thing again next semester, to a classroom where students were more or less forced to hear what I had to say. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't think I was going to make it. I thought, this is too hard. I thought, I can't get their attention. I thought, if I have to teach how to graph a line one more time, so help me God. But then serendipitously, I stumbled upon this community blog called One Good Thing. And it was a collective, really a new collective of educators that were committed to writing good things that happened in their classrooms. And they lived by this quote that every day may not be good, but there is one good thing in every day. And something about that quote hit me very viscerally, right? Because it didn't ignore the demands of my job, but it did insist on taking ownership of my day. and I hadn't learned yet how to make a seat at the table for the kids who needed the most love. Maybe taking ownership would empower me to do that. So one day I went from reader of the blog to writer, and I decided to pull up the blog's platform, write one good thing from the day, and hit publish. The next day, I logged into the blog's platform again, wrote one good thing again, and hit publish again. And the third day, I did the same, and I kept going, and I kept going, and I kept going, until after a decade of writing good things, on the last day of school in 2022, I wrote my exactly 1,400th post. And to be honest, at first I really didn't see the power that this kind of intentional reflection and gratitude was having. At first I was in a really reactive frame of mind, right? I'd pull open the blog's platform and just sort of think about my day until I could remember something kind of, sort of, halfway good, right? But then at some point there was this turn that I can't quite pinpoint. And instead of reactively thinking about my day in the past, I started to actively notice good things in the present. My brain would be like, hey, one good thing right there. Or another good thing. Maggie asked a question today, right? And so I went from reactive to active, searching for the good. The brain science backs this up. What I was doing was initiating my RAS, or my reticular activating system, which is my brain's filtering system. So the more I focused on the good, the part of my brain that filtered the good expanded, allowing me to see more good. It's true I did not know how hard this job was going to be. It's also true I didn't know how good it was going to be. At some point, I hit another turning point, and instead of actively noticing the good throughout the day, I wanted to proactively create the good throughout the day. I wanted to be that one good thing. I wanted to make sure there was a seat for each and every kid. And I was so committed to making sure there was a seat for every kid that I said, well, I'm just going to pull up a seat for every single kid, a literal seat. So at the beginning of each school year, I invite my students to come tell me their stories, because we know kids spell love, T-I-M-E. And it takes about 10 weeks to sit with now over 100 calculus students one-on-one to learn their stories. And oftentimes those weeks can be pretty heavy, right? But once those 10 weeks are over, there's an atmospheric shift. Everyone's in. Everyone has a seat at the table. We belong to each other. Do you see it? We went from reactive to active to proactive, all because of one blog post, one seat at a time, one good thing. Writing about the good was so transformational for me, both personally and professionally, that I brought it to my classroom. And so now every Friday, my students take out their math journals, turn to the last page, which we've titled One Good Thing, and they write something good from the week. And I say, it can be a word, it can be a phrase, a sentence, a paragraph. We're just going to take 2 minutes and focus on something good from the week, even if it wasn't a good week, because we're the authors of our own stories, right? A lot of my students have come back and said that was the best thing from math class. And I'm like, this wasn't fundamental theorem of calculus? No? Okay. But they continue this practice beyond graduation, and this was a video sweet Anna sent me after she wrote her 1,000th good thing. And as I continued to write, it's not that I ignored the bad, right? Every day may not be good. It's that I decided to take the reins. I decided to make space for the good things to land. And I've taught kids who are new to the country and linguistically diverse like myself, and kids who were born and raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've taught remedial math through AP Calculus. I have kids who are now in Ivy League colleges and kids who are now in prison. But you know what? They are all my kids. And they are all searching for their seat at the table, and no matter their story, I hope they found one in room 2704 of Union High School. These are each of their fingerprints over the last 3 school years. A continual visual reminder for me, and hopefully for them as well, that they leave both a literal and figurative mark in my heart and in my classroom. It's easy to focus on what's wrong, If we're not careful, we start to form a downward spiral. But gratitude jolts us out of that spiral. Gratitude gave me the eyes to see what I missed before. And if you go back and read some of these posts, they are not big, good things. Most of them are very little, one good things. But before, I wasn't making space for them to land, and I was missing them, right? But I think one of the most important things that this intentional gratitude helped me understand and helped me to practice was joy. And it taught me that joy is not binary. Joy is not the opposite of sadness. Joy can hold it all. It can hold the beauty and the sorrow of each story. Joy can sit with the wins and the losses. Joy can sit with both grief and triumph, and then in the end, since I'm right here, I'm not going anywhere, and I'm going to share my calm and my peace until you feel it too. Joy is why we look for the good in each day. Joy, as Gary Hogan says, is the oxygen of doing hard things. And there are hard things we have to tackle in this profession, right? Stories that both break and mend our hearts. And the stories we hold are far from binary as well, right? Like the hands that placed these beautiful flowers on my desk. And thanks for finally helping him finish his high school diploma. Were the same hands that 2 years later decided to pull a trigger and take another man's life. The hands that laid his mother to rest are the same hands that pulled a viola from its case, played For Good, one of my favorite songs for me, before thanking me, a teacher, for being a mother figure in his life. The hands that contemplated taking her own life were the same hands that penned these words: "You brighten my morning regardless of how the rest of my life is going." Stories soften us, right? Stories empower us to elevate student voice authentically. Holding space for our student stories allows us to ensure that every single kid has a seat at the table. But the truth is we hold so very much as teachers, and particularly post-pandemic, there's still so much healing to be done. The good news is that the science is clear, and connection is how we heal. So connect to your students, learn their stories. Building relationships is not a classroom management technique, right? Viewing it that way, I think, is akin to like searching for fighting the symptom as opposed to like searching for a cure. We operate at our best when we're connected on a human level. What a gift to be in a profession that allows us to offer that connection to others and to experience it ourselves. When we learn our students' stories, grace permeates, right? We'll find ourselves saying, he's not lazy. He's putting his head down because he's had to sleep in his car all week. Or she's not defiant. She cheated on that test because if she doesn't bring home an A, she'll suffer the wrath of her father. Or they're not bad. They're throwing that tantrum because this is their third school in 3 months. Grace doesn't make excuses, but it does make room. Grace helps us to choose to be effective over being right. Grace makes sure that there's a seat for each and every kid. My one good thing posts have now kind of gone beyond the four walls of my classroom, and I've tried to bring it to the walls of other people's classrooms. As Oklahoma Teacher of the Year this past school year, I committed to finding teachers in our state and writing about the good that happened in their classrooms. So after writing 1,400 posts, I committed to finding teachers in our state's 77 counties who serve our 700,000 public school students. And I would drive to their buildings, watch them in their natural habitats of their classrooms, learn their stories, and then I'd write about the good and hit publish. It wasn't until after I launched this campaign that I realized the thread of the sevens, right? And as a mathematician, I can't help but sense a perhaps divine nod that this work matters. It's no secret that it's a hard time to be in education right now. And so I think now more than ever, we have to be loud and proud about the good and the true that's happening in our classrooms. These teachers' stories within the first few months of launch reached over 100,000 people on social media and in their local newspapers. I think that's one good thing. My goal was to use my spotlight for the year to shine a light on one other teacher at a time and make sure there was a seat for each of them. But just like my own teachers and my colleagues are a piece of me, so these teachers became a part of me, and their stories influenced my story, right? I think about Ebony Harris, who said that every kid in the school is hers, not just those on her roster. I was inspired by Kyle to bring more music and rhythm into my classroom to help my students self-regulate. And then there's Lauren Green, whose daily affirmations with her second graders said, "I am loved, I am unique, Mrs. Green believes in me." So, how will you practice joy? How will you take the reins? How will you be the one good thing? Do not underestimate the power of one. Do not underestimate the power that one educator committed to one act of hope every single day can accomplish. If we increase by just 1% every day, then here's what the math tells us. It's going to feel real slow at first. Feels actually like we're not moving at all, and I can affirm this with my one good thing post. I didn't feel it at first. I didn't feel it. But if we keep going and going, we find we're actually increasing exponentially. Right? In calculus, we say this function has both first and second derivatives that are positive. The first derivative is positive because the function's going up. It's increasing, right? But the second is also positive because the rates, or these slopes, are also increasing. In other words, we're increasing at an increasing rate. So, can we commit to being that one good thing and together be unified as one? So, own your story. How you teach and why you teach is a story completely unique to you, and that story is longing to be told. Maybe you became a teacher because of that person you held in your heart. Maybe you became a teacher because of a tap on the shoulder. And I'm wondering, are we tapping the shoulders of the next generation, right? We have to be the ambassadors for this profession, because if we aren't, who will be, right? This is our profession. We're the ones inside the classrooms. It's time that we reclaim it. And I'm asking that as you thought about that person who you held in your heart, and someone's going to be holding you in their heart, can you also weave in that next set of teachers? Because again, if we don't take on this mantle of ambassadors, who is going to? And if no one does, who's going to be our colleagues in 10 or 15 years? Who's going to be teaching our kids and our grandkids? How we approach our work matters deeply. Our kids are watching, right? How we talk about our work matters. How we talk about our students matters. How we talk about our colleagues and our administrators, it all matters. Own your individual story, and let's own our collective story as educators. And notice the good. Doesn't have to be a blog post, but find ways to document and share the good. I had a principal, I didn't share that earlier, that read every single one of those one good things, and there's a little bit of accountability there, right? But find ways to document the good. It can be text or voice notes, pictures or video diaries. You're educators, you can differentiate as you see best, but find ways to make space for the good things to land, because when we're intentional about gratitude, it jolts us into seeing the beauty all around us, in our work, in our students, and in our colleagues. And E, exponentiate. You knew I had to throw just a little bit more math at you, right? In algebra, to exponentiate means to raise a value, raise a number to another value. And we just saw the kind of power that an exponential function has if we work consistently, right? What a shame it would have been had I stopped here before I hit that uptake, right? This is the same kind of power we have as teachers, that power to turn a bad day into a good one, the power to believe in a child even when she doesn't quite yet believe in herself. As teachers, if we make the space to hold each and every student's story year after year, our exponential impact will ripple on and on. Know your power. Equity cannot happen without education, and education cannot happen without teachers. You and I, we believe viscerally in the mission of education to dismantle marginalization, eliminate systemic inequities, and end generational poverty. I come from people and places that have experienced each of these. My father is from Iran, a pariah state where the latest protests reverberate woman, life, freedom. As a teenager, I lived in Tajikistan, a war-torn country where over 80% of the population lived below the poverty line, and where my family and I have chosen to lay our roots. Tulsa, Oklahoma, is the home of the Tulsa Race Massacre, a city marred by both past and current injustices. Yet in this city where great inequities occur, I serve with a district that chooses to harness the power of its community to make sure the needs of each of our students are met, to make sure there's a seat for each and every kid. Educators, you hold our democracy, a kind of freedom not afforded to every child on this earth. And regardless of our governing structure, we know education is liberation. As an Iranian American woman, I stand acutely aware that liberty for us all is no guarantee, but rather it's a product of a nation's people insisting we belong to each other. Teachers, you are the ones carrying that banner. Thank you for carrying our mission that every single kid is in, no matter the color of their skin, zip code, or gender, no matter their socioeconomic standing, religious affiliation, immigration status, or sexual orientation. Mrs. Hord's sentiments ring resoundingly true. Our differences make us beautiful. All are welcome, all have a seat at the table, all voices get equal representation. That's the heartbeat of this country. And we, as teachers, safeguard it every day. And when we safeguard this idea that we belong to each other, we hold our students. And if we're lucky, we find they hold us too. At our best, we shine a light on the truest, kindest, most beautiful version of our kids' lives. At their best, they reciprocate and reveal what science taught us long ago. Light can't be captured or contained. It must be reflected. Teachers, the first words I learned in English are still my heart song to you. Thank you. As a child, I learned from you, believed in you, walked alongside you. I still do. It's the honor of my lifetime to walk with you and walk for you, as the words my heart carries are, I slutande, en och en, kanske vi alla bara går hem till varandra. In the end, one by one, maybe we're all just walking each other home. Thank you. Thank you. I should have led with this, but I think we're going to do a little, like 10 minutes of question and answer. So I think maybe Ashley is helping us with questions from the virtual audience, and then there's microphones on either end.
That's right. Excellent. Thank you so much for that talk, Rebecca. It was amazing. We do have a question from the virtual audience. It's a little bit long, so I'll try to read it briefly, but I think you'll get the essence of it. Thanks for focusing on students' voice, strengths, connectedness, and belonging, which embody the science of learning and development. Nicholas Hobbs, the author of Troubled and Troubling Student, developed a model to educate students whom educators often write off. And he articulated the educational principle that a child should know some joy in each day. What are the implications of this principle for educators of all students?
Yeah, well, I think certainly there's implications for our students, right? And our current children are our future adults of our communities, right? And I believe we have this collective responsibility to instill joy and purpose so that our students can live healthy, productive, connected, joy-filled lives. But I think there's also a very deep implication for educators here, because when we feel these connections as teachers, it grounds us in our work, right? And it allows us to not ignore all that's going on, but it gives us that stamina and that strength to keep going. And that's why it is so important to look for the good every day. It's so important that we bring joy into our work, both for ourselves, for our current students, and I think also for the next generation of students. Because again, if we're not bringing this joy, who's going to want to be in this profession, right? And if we're not, again, being these ambassadors for this profession, then who is?
There's one more question from the virtual audience,
Yeah.
but folks that are here in person can also line up, queue up to the microphones as well. As a pre-service teacher, I'm excited but anxious about heading to my own classroom this fall. What advice would you give me this school year?
Oh, I would first say congrats and thank you as a colleague and as a mom. That is so exciting. Advice. Find those teachers in your building that you admire, that you look up to, and lean on them. On the other teachers in your sphere, and collaborate. But don't try to do it all at once. Don't try to do it all. Baby steps, right? This vocation is not a sprint. It's a marathon, and so we've got to kind of condition ourselves accordingly. And so maybe my small piece of advice would be like, maybe stay away from like the social media spheres for a little bit, because while they can be very inspiring, it can be also make you feel like I have to do all these things on day one, and I think that can lead to burnout. So small steps, look for the good, document the good, and lean on your people.
I'm over here. So I'm really interested in the fact that you went to different teachers to help them try to find the joy. If I am the current joy bringer of my team, how do I help my team find that joy in those small ways so that I'm sharing the load of us not burning out instead of it all being... And this is not just my team, but maybe my school is a little bit on the burnout trail.
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think because you have to give educators the space and time to vent when they need to as well, right? But I think first building that trust with our team, so that they know me, they know my heart, they know that I'm going to be there to validate when things are not going good. But then they also trust me enough to say, it was a really rough day, and I need to tell you something good for my own peace of mind, right? Because I need to, for my own heart, end on a good note. And so I think a lot of it is modeling first and foremost. And then once they've bought into that, I now have colleagues that say, and I know you're going to ask me, what was something good from today? And so, modeling and making space for that, but also it's not binary, right? Like also acknowledging when things are rough and like what can we do for this, while still saying, we're coming back tomorrow for the kids, and we're the narrators here, so what was the good? Another thing we did that really was pretty transformational for me in building that trust was we set up my department did, and then the goal was to get this into the rest of the building, but a virtual calendar where if I was doing something different that day, I said, like, if you want to come during your planning period, you can come watch me, use Plickers or whatever. And then people could just, in my department, swing by during their plan, like 5-10 minutes, and then we would have conversations. And so I think as educators, we feel like we are alone so much of the time. And this was a really, I feel, authentic way to get in each other's classrooms that was absolutely not at all evaluative, but it helped build real trust and camaraderie, because we could then say, hey, I loved what you did in your 6th hour. I'm planning this thing in a week with my algebra class. How do you think it would connect? And so we're building and we're having these very productive conversations, which again focuses on what's going right.
Rebecca, thank you so much for the talk and for the amazing tips about how to bring this into everyday practice. As the National Teacher of the Year, what are you hearing and seeing from teachers across the nation that you think we should know?
Yeah, so I actually just officially started a couple weeks ago, but I can tell you I got to see a lot of my state in Oklahoma, and I think that what teachers there have said very much echoes a lot of the rest of the country. And I would always ask them, how do we recruit and retain highly effective educators? And they always said, money, certainly, but beyond that, they said, we really need to restore this profession to one of respect and appreciation. And I get emotional talking about that, because it just doesn't feel like a very big ask. And so if you are not in the classroom, my ask is that you pick one educator, one teacher this school year to support, because our teachers hold story after story, year after year, and it makes me wonder who's holding our teachers' stories. And so my ask is that you hold their stories and check in with them, send that email periodically, and just remind them of how important their work is, because when you're in it, sometimes you forget, right, that this is the fabric of our communities. So remind them of the importance of their work. Buy a couple things off their Amazon wish list, maybe. Send that random electronic Starbucks gift card. Go volunteer if you can. Set an alarm, and every day hold them in your heart, because when we hold each other in our hearts, it changes us, right? When we learn each other's stories, we carry a piece of one another with us, and we are forever changed. And I think that's how we start to really belong to each other. I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Chisholm.
Join me in thanking Rebecca for amazing. Take it back. Yes. Wow. What an amazing way to start our summit. And thank you so much for helping us remember to find the joy in each and every day, and also the very brass tacks ways that we can kind of take that into the things that we do each and every day. So thank you so much, Rebecca. I just feel so honored that we have a chance to hear the stories of so many of our keynotes. So last night when we started, we had a chance to hear from Secretary Lonnie G. Bunch III, from Jamar Roundtree, who's the DC Teacher of the Year, and also from Curtis Valentine. And they were very vulnerable with us and shared their stories with us so that we might find ways to connect with them through their stories. But also today, with Rebecca sharing her story, I just feel so honored to be able to learn from their experiences, to have their stories influence how we're thinking about our own practice and our work, and find those connections in ways that we might not have an opportunity to do without their voices and their stories. So thank you so much for that. We will have a phenomenal opportunity. So over the next 2 days, I just want to remind everyone about a couple of sessions. So make sure to come back either with virtual audience, our virtual audience who's joining us across the nation and international. We will be back at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. to have a conversation with Malik Pancholi, who is an actor, author, activist, who has focused his platform on centering the stories of Asian Americans. And so he'll be back this afternoon in person to talk with us about his work and what he's doing. And he also has a very special focus on anti-bullying for gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered students. And so please come back and join us for that. He will be in conversation with our very own Andrea Kim Neighbors, who is our Smithsonian Educator of the Year. And then tomorrow, please come back and join us for our 10:30 keynote with Dr. Pamela Cantor. She is a leading researcher on the science of learning and development and will help to unpack that research base for us. And then I get to have a great conversation with a panel of students who are connected to the Smithsonian in different ways and hear about their stories of belonging and what makes a difference for them in their learning journeys. And then you definitely do not want to miss tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock. We will have an opportunity to learn more about how music fosters that sense of belonging through students from LA Unified School District and also the Fender Play Foundation. And they are going to have a dynamic performance that you do not want to miss. And so stay with us for the entire summit. And we look forward to interacting and engaging with you. So thank you for joining us.